Hi, everybody. It's Mike Kerr, and you're watching On the Wall, our new segment here on our YouTube channel. And this is where we talk about the truth and what's really happening. And to coin a phrase that came from our guest today, not on our watch, that's a lot to do with what we do here up on the wall at Hear the Watchman and on the Wall. And today we have with us my dear friend and colleague and just a wonderful veteran by the name of Stewart Rhodes. Stewart, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. Appreciate it.
Stewart is the founder of the Oath Keepers. And as the founder of the Oath Keepers, he was there on January 6th and unfortunately was falsely charged, in my opinion, and went into prison, federal prison, as a J6 detainee. Fortunately, he did some time, and then, by the grace of God, he was able to be released, and his sentence was, I forget the word, Stuart,
Commuted.
commuted.
Right.
Now we're working with Stewart diligently to bring you the truth about that and some other things. And to also, I want to make you guys aware that we are raising money to help Stewart continue on with his mission. And he will be a keynote speaker at our upcoming conference in Springfield, Ohio. Excuse me, Springfield,
Missouri, right?
Springfield, Missouri. It has been a long morning, you guys.
You need
Spring,
more coffee. You need more
Missouri.
coffee, brother.
And he'll be out there August 22nd through the 24th. Just visit hearthewatchman.com. And Stewart is one of the keynote speakers there. So come out and meet him in person. So, Stewart, I just want to start out today. You know, the world's blowing up right now. I mean,
Mhm.
it's my emails and my text messages have been off the hook crazy this morning with mass panic over what is happening between Israel and Iran.
Right.
And my opinion is, look, one, God's got this. Two, you know, we've been down this road time and time again in the Middle East. But Stuart, what's your take on what's happening over there and what we should expect?
I think I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier. So I think they're attempting a decapitation strike against the Islamist regime in Iran, which is the right way to go. If you're going to fight Iran, what you don't want to do is kill the people of Iran. There were mass protests in Iran over the years of Iranians trying to stand up against the mullahs, and then they're ruthlessly suppressed. So they don't have free elections over there. The mullahs were never elected. They were just installed themselves in the revolution back, what was it, 79? So I look at it like this. I don't think the Iranian people are our enemies, but I do think the mullahs are definitely our enemies. And so people can have difference of opinion about U.S. foreign policy and the Middle East and Israel, but the bottom line is that the Iranian regime is a radical Islamist regime that definitely has sleeper cells in the United States, either directly or through their proxies. And so I think one thing we have to be prepared for here in our country is October 7th style attacks. And Al Qaeda has already bragged that they have cells in this country and they're going to carry out such attacks. So it could be that this will trigger that. If the Iranian regime feels like it's about to lose power, it may just, go full on, full retard and instruct their proxies in the United States to attack us here in the United States.
Well, are you let's say surprised at all that this happened right now?
No, I'm not. Like I said, I mean, the I was surprised that there wasn't a decapitation strike done earlier because people kept saying, "Oh, Iran's months away from a nuclear bomb," and that was years ago. So I'm really surprised that Israel didn't strike sooner. I really am not surprised at all that they did this.
Well, it appears that the strikes that Israel initiated yesterday were very targeted and very successful. I mean,
Right.
they took out some key military leaders. Apparently, they took out the nuclear plant, the weapons, all that.
Hmm.
Uh, I am a little surprised, though, right now that Iran has not really responded. What do you think what's going on there?
Not sure. I mean, it could be that the mullahs are worried that if they retaliate, then they'll be targeting them themselves. So, and I'm surprised that hasn't been done already. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they have a pretty good array of missiles, right? They could launch. So that's a good question. Maybe they're holding those back. Maybe they're holding those back as a threat to prevent an invasion, prevent a complete overthrow. So, but I'm really surprised that Iran has not. I don't believe they targeted the actual leadership, right? The actual Ayatollah, did they? I don't think they did.
Well, do you do you think they still have well, you did say they have the capabilities to respond,
I
but
think they still do. Yeah.
do you think that they're worried about what the U.S. response would be if they did?
Yes, I think right now they're trying to process this and figure out what they're going to do next. But the danger for us is that if the mullahs believe they're about to lose power or be personally killed, they may just feel like they have nothing to lose and unleash their cells here in the United States and through their proxies, other cells too.
Do you feel that we're adequately protected here in the States for that?
No, I don't. And I think that's why I bring up the Insurrection Act, but also the Militia Acts. Um, I believe that we need to expect October 7 style attacks. I think they're going to happen in this country. And we need to realize there has been what they call a red-green alliance. John Guandolo has been talking about this for many years, and others been blowing the whistle on this too, including some ex-Muslims that say, yes, this is the plan. There's an alliance between the communists on the radical left and the radical jihadists who are here in the United States. So they've already infiltrated this country and they've got cells all over the place, along with radicalized Muslims in the United States who are a pool of potential terrorists also. So you got dedicated terrorists who've been infiltrated for that purpose, but then you have this pool of radicalized Muslims in America that they may respond, especially if the United States directly gets involved in the Iran conflict with Israel, as you might have, jihadis going live here in the United States on their own without orders. So they just do their own thing. That's possible too. So we should expect that. That's why I'm writing right now a proposal for President Trump that what he should do, I believe, is then under his authority, under the Insurrection Act, because the Insurrection Act is very clear. Let me just read one section of it. This relates to the riots, but also relates to potential jihadi attacks. Um, so Section 332 of the Insurrection Act, and this is 10 U.S. Code, Section 331 to 335. It says, use of militia and armed forces to enforce federal authority. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impracticable to enforce the laws of the United States, like our immigration laws, in any state by the ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state and use such of the armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or to suppress the rebellion. So he has see, Congress was in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. It states that Congress has the authority, the power to provide for calling forth the militia. And it lists for three purposes: to repel invasions, to suppress insurrections, and to execute the laws of the Union. And so the Insurrection Act is tracking with that and it was first signed into law by President Jefferson way back when, and it has different versions over our history. It's been amended, but the bottom line is that Congress did provide for calling forth the militia in the militia statutes, and those statutes to this day define the militia of the United States as all able-bodied males between the age of 17 and 45. And then it has a related federal statute that says that veterans can be called up as the militia by the president into service until age 64. So that is the pool of manpower he has available. So the statutes, the militia statutes define the militia, they say the organized militia is the National Guard. And then they say everybody who's not in the organized militia, the National Guard, is the unorganized militia, which is still militia. So we're unorganized, which is an oxymoron, but we're still part of the defined militia in federal statutes. The president has full authority through these statutes long ago, and by fact of him being the commander in chief, to call all of us up. And I think he should. What I'm going to call on President Trump to do is call us up as the militia to and order us under his command, no longer under the command of governors or state legislature. They dropped the ball long ago and never organized the rest of us into militia. Only have the National Guard. So he can call us all up and say, I'm ordering you to assemble in your counties and form a county unit, a county militia unit under my command, with the veterans being tasked with taking leadership and then turning around and training all the other men in the county. I want you to prepare yourselves for what we know is coming, October 7th style attacks in the United States, and to be ready as a ready to go unit under my command, under the president's command, to be used either on the border or if there's when there's attacks in the United States by terrorists or when there's open rebellion by the radical left, as it gets worse and worse in the summer. But he should do that now and prepare us. He can order us to stay in our counties and do nothing except organize and train until he says otherwise, which would prevent anybody from doing anything stupid. So that's what I think he should do right now. And there's no reason why he can't do that. And that's the one thing I know the deep state does not want to do. Because what the deep state wants to give us is a false choice. They want to have chaos in the streets, chaos in our country, and their only solution is going to be, Terminator style totalitarian surveillance and drones flying over our heads and biometric ID and all that kind of nonsense. So that's why I think the answer is go back to what the founders understood as being necessary for the security of a free state, what they tell us. A well-regulated, which means well-trained and organized, militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. It's not just a right, it's also a duty. You have a duty to serve as the militia. You have a duty to get together with your neighbors and do that. It's something that, of course, the establishment wants to suppress and demonize. If you try to do it on your own, they'll demonize you. That's happened throughout our history, right? They'll infiltrate you and try to entrap you and everything else because they don't want the people to be organized. They want us to be unorganized and weak and defenseless, and then go to Big Brother as our only solution. It's a false choice. So that's why I think President Trump, if he wants to help this country become strong again, make America strong again, he should call us up. And he has full authority because there is an invasion right now, obviously. We got the cartels coming across our border as proxies for communist China, killing us with fentanyl. That's part of the Chinese plan. That's what they call unrestricted warfare. They're using fentanyl to kill military-age Americans. That's what they're doing. It's mostly our youth, young women and young men that are being killed, right, by fentanyl. That's war. China's already at war with us. That's their way of prosecuting a war against us. So that's happening. We got child sex trafficking coming across the border, and we got jihadis coming across the border, and they're already here. So there's an invasion. There is an insurrection now. We've got radical leftists attacking ICE agents in the streets. And there's a problem with the execution of the laws of the union. You got obstruction going on in the states, so by state governors. So there is a failure in the normal course, and you got judges now who are also obstructing the president. So you have a failure of normal course, normal procedures and processes for our law.
Well, Stewart, it's interesting because you dialed into this in a big way, and I believe it might not be a popular belief, but I believe that a lot of Americans out there right now are so ill prepared. They're so nervous. They just have no understanding of what's really going on,
Right,
and to coin a phrase that you actually was one of your guys at the Oath Keepers, Brian Krugman, who we used to call Sasquatch. I haven't talked to him in a while now.
right, right,
He was helping us at one of the Hear the Watchman conferences and providing security with some of the rest of your guys. And I asked him once, I said, "What are you going to do if the bullets start to fly in here?" He said, "Dive under the stage so I don't get caught up in the redneck crossfire," which I mean, he was joking. But A lot of us that are prepared say, I worry about that. I worry about the fact that, there will be some people have no clue what they're doing. What would you suggest to people if they want to prepare a bit for what might be coming?
Well, that's why you got to be trained. So that's why you need to train. People who own firearms should be trained. They should go and seek competent training in their community and make sure that they're safe when they function with their firearm. Then they learn good tactics. So, but there have been plenty of situations where you've had active shooters in churches, for example, where the church security team very competently took them down. So, if you train, and you should, if you carry a firearm, you should train diligently and work up the ladder of training. Just starting off with basic firearm safety and make sure you have safe gun handling and you're safe and competent with your gun handling. But then you need to learn, how do you engage a bad guy in a crowded room? So what do you do? So, maybe you take a knee and shoot up, so you hit him in the head, so without hitting people behind them. You figure that out in training. You figure out how to do this right. And so what I would say is every church should have a dedicated security team. But I would also, if I were a pastor, I would welcome anyone to carry a firearm. But I would encourage them all to get training. And they should organize training. And a lot of churches do that. They'll have an organized security team and then they'll train the rest of the parishioners in the church too. And then once they're trained up, they add them to the security team. It can't hurt to have extra people, you know. So every church should have a very robust security team, and not just on the inside of the church. They should be on the outside of the church also, because that's where the bad guys stage. That's where and so that's, when I do a security assessment for a church, that's what I do is I tell them you need to have at least two men on the outside who are watching the parking lot, watching the surrounding streets, watching for the staging behavior. Because most of the time, like that church shooting in Texas, I forgot what town that was. The bad guy pulled up, got out of his car, put all his stuff on, and no one in the church knew he was even there until he opened fire, and he shot through, the very thin wooden walls of the church, and used an AR-15 to kill a lot of people from the outside before he even walked in. And they did not have a dedicated security team. They just had, a rule that, hey, if you wanted to carry a gun, you could. Well, it just happened to be that day that no one was carrying a gun in the church. They were all defenseless. So you need a dedicated security team, and you do want them trained up. You got retired police officers and military veterans, I'm sure, in every church. So, I understand what Brian was saying, but hey, you make sure your people are competent and squared away, and then you take that and you spread it out to all the parishioners. They should all be trained.
Well, if the I agree with you, and by the way, Stuart and I were talking earlier, you guys, I think we're going to do some sort of a training course that you
You
can
just broke up. I couldn't hear you.
we're going to do some sort of a training course here. Stuart and I were talking about it before we came on air. And we're going to look into that because I do believe that it's essential and important for everybody to be prepared and know what to do, not just have a bunch of canned food and a bunch of weapons that you don't know how to use. Uh,
Right.
but I do want to know from you, Stuart, uh, if uh, there was, say, an attack like there was on October 7th. If there was an attack like that, where do you think that would occur? In the major cities, in the rural areas?
I,
What would make the most impact for them?
Well, I mean, there's a good mini novella written by, I think his guy's name is Forshine. He's the one that wrote the 1 Second After novel. He wrote another really good one called Day of Wrath. It's a very small little novella, a little small novel about a hypothetical situation where jihadi cells go active, like 6-man jihadi cells with body armor and AKs attack elementary schools all across the country. And to cause massive chaos and terror. They would do it in rural communities and in cities, not just cities, but also in the rural areas too. So, and then of course they would ambush the first responders, which is very common for terrorists to do that. They'll attack they'll do an attack, and then the first responders, EMS, fire, police who come in to help people are then hit with IEDs. That's what he lays out in the novel. And then the parents who rush to the school are also ambushed on the way there. Well, it causes as much death and terror as it can. So that's what a jihadi's goal is, right? He just wants to kill as many people as possible. And they would, attacking schools. That's a attacking our children is one thing they would do. But you can see the same thing with churches and synagogues. So I think you would see if school's out, I think you can see them attacking like daycare centers, churches, synagogues, anywhere to cause that kind of terror, along with attacking infrastructure. And that's the one thing to think about with China, because we've got tens of thousands of Chinese illegals have infiltrated, many of them military-age males. Among them are going to be obviously PLA, Special Forces, or other soldiers who've been trained to do sabotage. So you should expect attacks on if this goes live and let's say Iran and China combined, because they're allies, if they decide to go ahead and cause what they think is going to be a takedown of the United States from the inside out, they would use the radical left in conjunction with the jihadis who are already here and their cells of PLA troops, and they would be attacking infrastructure, bridges, dams, power stations, railway lines, et cetera, to cripple us and our ability to move around. And at the same time, they would have the jihadis going out there and killing Americans and causing terror. And, part of that would be to spark a civil war in the United States. So that's what they would like to see, I think.
Hmm. You know,
And it
it's
might be unavoidable. It might be at the point where we're already at the stage now where we've had a wide open border. You've got tens of millions of illegal aliens here, among them terrorists and proxies for our enemies. And so it might be unavoidable.
well, I personally, and I'm sure you would agree, now more than ever is a time where all of us need to have our head on a swivel, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you should be prepared. So the founders, they understood that your security it's dependent upon you and your neighbors being the militia. I keep going back to that like a broken record. It's just the truth. You're like they said in the Second Amendment, it's necessary for the security of a free state. You're not going to be secure or free if you don't have that because you'll be given a false choice of either total chaos or Big Brother comes in with the drones and total surveillance. That's your false choice that the establishment and the globalists want to give you is that false choice. So the answer is to go back what the founders understood is that we are always our own security. This is the reality anyway. Whenever there's a natural disaster like a major hurricane, what do you wind up seeing? The police are overwhelmed. They can't do it on their own. There's just too much to do. And so you wind up with, local residents having to defend their property and their neighborhoods. They're on their front lawn with rifles and shotguns. So you're going to do that anyway. That's what I tell guys all the time. It's like you're going to wind up on your front lawn with your rifle and shotgun, protecting your property and your neighborhood, whether that's a grid down bad, worst case scenario, whether it's a civil war, whether it's a riot, whether it's a hurricane or tornado. In the aftermath, bad guys come out and prey on the innocent. We saw it all the time with our disaster relief work. But because we have retired police officers and veterans and oath keepers, we always had built-in security wherever we went, which allowed us to go in places where other relief agencies could not go. They can't Red Cross or Samaritan's Purse. They do good work, but they won't go into an area that's gang infested, that's unstable. They just won't do it. They'll stay out. We could go into those places because we have our own security built in. And then we would oftentimes stand up local residents to form their own neighborhood watch to suppress the looters. And then we just drive on and go somewhere else.
Well, I think we've all witnessed here, uh, especially in the last couple of years, with some of the natural disasters, as you mentioned. The fact that if you are sitting around thinking that Big Brother's going to show up at your door to help you out, you've got a whole other thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, FEMA is completely useless. But even FEMA over the years have said you have to self-rescue for the first 72 hours. That whatever rescue agency, state or federal and law enforcement, like in Hurricane Harvey is a good example. There were search and rescue teams that came from all over the United States with boats and everything else, but there still weren't enough people to take care of it. It was such a bad disaster. That's why Governor Abbott, and I'm a critical of Governor Abbott for many other things he's done, like the COVID shutdowns and all that. But in this case, he did the right thing. He realized that he did not have enough official help from search and rescue and law enforcement from all the neighboring states. There's still not enough. So he called in the Cajun Navy. He put out a public request for the Cajun Navy for the guys with the flatboats from Louisiana to come in and help, and they did. And they helped rescue people and save people's lives. And then we were on the ground also during Hurricane Harvey and we guarded a warehouse in downtown Houston at the invitation of the warehouse owner. He was volunteer. This is the thing: is Americans take care of each other, and we saw this again in the recent hurricane and tragedies in North Carolina, and other Appalachian states. You wind up with Americans helping each other. They always do. So volunteer truckers would bring in truckloads of donated goods from churches all over the country and brought them into Houston. And this warehouse owner volunteered his warehouse to be the distribution point. But he had violent gangs on both sides of his warehouse, two rival gangs, and he was worried that they would come in and try to, steal stuff at gunpoint. So he asked us, the Oath Keepers, to come in and protect the warehouse, and we did. We put guys on the rooftop with rifles, just as we had done during the Ferguson riots against looters and arsonists. And the gangs left us alone. They want to mess with us. That's been our history. That's been our experience over the years, is that violent gangs or radical leftists don't want to mess with armed retired police officers and veterans because they don't want to get shot. So they tend to leave you alone. So we guarded the warehouse, but then we also escorted teams of doctors and nurses to go out and do wellness checks on people. And we escorted deliveries of truck deliveries full of relief supplies to hard hit communities. So we'd show up, like one hard hit community was probably mostly illegal aliens, but they had some gangbangers. Some of the cartel gangs were there, but they saw us. We rolled in with guys. Once again, we need to. We'll pull our rifles out, and they see that we're not playing around. They backed off and left us alone. So we were able to help people. So that's been our experience over the years, is that you have to have built-in security. You can't just, because FEMA will tell you you have to self-rescue for the first 72 hours. But they don't talk about security. When it comes to security, they tell you to call the cops. Wait a minute, you just told me no one's coming for 72 hours, but how are the cops going to show up? So if the fire department and search and rescue can't show up because they're overwhelmed, how are the police going to show up? And the answer is they won't. They just don't want you organizing yourselves to defend yourselves.
Well, and what I like about what you're talking about and what you guys did, was you were mission focused and well trained. And I can tell you guys from experience, I happen to live in a very rural area, way up. You can see it in the background, in the mountains of Idaho. We are not on the way to or from anywhere, and 60% of our community is veterans. And
Right.
and I'll tell you right now, though, we've had some major fires up here. And when those fires hit, the forest fires, one of the largest forest fires in history came through here. I'm telling you, the government agencies, the Forest Service, the fire people, all of that stuff, nobody talks to each other. I mean, the evacuation plans, no one knew they have this stage one, stage two, stage three, get out. Nobody really knew what was going on. It was completely up to the individuals to
Mhm.
protect their property and to get out if they needed to get out. And so I don't know about you, Stuart, but one of the major problems with relying on the government to provide us with the services we need during those times is that the government itself can't figure out how to communicate with each other on how to provide services. Is that true?
Yeah, well, we've seen that over and over again. So it's a mixture of incompetency and malice. Like with FEMA, you've got arrogant FEMA people that come in, and what they really do is just get in the way. I mean, we never saw a FEMA personnel ever because we were always so far out in front. We just never saw them. But they would come in the aftermath and pure ridiculous stuff like, oh, I can't go to your house and assess your damage because I'm not allowed to go, through this road because the road is declared unpassable, even though the locals are driving right through it all the time. It's just ridiculous. They come in with their clipboards and all they do is get in the way. And they give you like what, $5,000 for your wrecked house. So so FEMA is useless as a lipstick on a pig pretty much. So don't rely on FEMA to do anything for you. You take care of each other and yourselves. And that's why you have veterans stepping up. They had, Special Forces veterans jumped in. I was still in prison. This was going on. They jumped in and helped to bring in supplies. It's the same thing. So we got to cut through the red tape. Like in that Hurricane Harvey, for example, the Louisiana National Guard was bringing in truckloads of food and water, which is fantastic. But they were not allowed to have weapons. They were told they must come in unarmed. So they're completely defenseless against local meth heads who wanted to, steal their stuff. And so we wound up doing ride-alongs with the National Guard from Louisiana. We're in Texas, on the down low. I'm sure their commander never knew about it, but the sergeants on the ground were like, "Hey, we got an ex-infantry guy that can hop in the truck." Yeah, sure, or an ex-cop. And so we did ride-alongs with local sheriff deputies, local constables, and with the National Guard. And we watched over the National Guard at night. So we were their protection while they were sleeping. They were defenseless. And I asked the sergeant in charge, like their first sergeant in charge of their unit, after about a week, I was like, do you still need us? He's like, please don't go. He said, without you guys, we're completely defenseless. While we sleep. He said, so so that was a synergy. That's the problem with red tape. Oh, we want you to go assist, but no guns. Well, how are they going to protect themselves against the local meth heads who want to steal their Humvee or steal their deuce and a half? It's just crazy.
Well,
That's politicians for you, though, right?
we got interesting times we're living. What a time to be alive. I mean,
Right.
it
Yeah.
really is. I mean, there's all this stuff going on. So, Stewart, we want to help you. How do we help Stewart Rhodes on his mission? How can people donate to you?
They have a Give Set Go. It's givesendgo.com/GAF 5B. So that's Golf Alpha Foxtrot 5 Bravo. And folks can donate there and help me rebuild my life and then drive on my mission. Mission has not changed. It's to defend the Constitution and to defeat the deep state. And that's what I'm going to do until the day I die. So,
Well, Stuart, I want to thank you for joining us. I know you got a full day ahead of us. Here, you're going to be on with Alex Jones later today. I'll be very interested to see what you guys have to say there. And thank you for everything you're doing to defend our freedom and our Constitution. And I am truly heartbroken at what you had to go through. And I'm also uh, very much honored to be working with you and moving forward now. So, Stuart,
likewise, likewise, brother.
all the best to you. We'll
It's
see you.
all it's all in God's plan. That's how I look at it. And He doesn't give you anything you can't handle. So,
We'll see you up in Springfield,
all right.
Missouri, August 22nd through the 24th. Guys, get out there, come out and meet Stewart, have lunch with him, have a cup of coffee with him. Just get there.
And
And
I want to do some kind of a training course that they can take home with them about community watch organization, just nuts and bolts, all lessons learned from our disaster relief and security operations. Give them something they can take back with them for
that's
sure.
awesome.
All
That's
right.
awesome. Just go to hearthewatchmen.com, get signed up, and we'll see you there. Again, Stuart, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on another episode of On the Wall. Please subscribe to our channel, and you'll get notifications when we're doing new shows and talking about the guest. And Stuart, if you wouldn't mind making sure that I have that link where people can go to help you and donate. I'll put that in
You
the
bet.
description. So, God bless you. Get out there and make a difference, and we'll see you next time.
All right. God bless.